Hello and welcome. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and we are here for a new session in our Fall 2014 CRM event series. Today I am happy to welcome Dynamics CRM Senior Consultant Matthew Mead. Matt is a veteran CRM and IT professional. He's based at Catapult in Vancouver, and he is here today to share his latest views on the power of Dynamics CRM and SharePoint solutions for customer service. So I just wanted to add, as we invite you to, as we get started, that we do invite you to add your feedback and ask questions today during Matt's presentation. I'd also like to recognize our event series sponsors and thank them for their support. They are Scribe Software, Perceptive Software, and Silverpop. And as we get started, please just know that you can use the Q&A block or the chat that you will see on the right side of the webcast session to add your feedback. So without further delay, Matt, let me hand it off to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jason. Hey, good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the power of CRM and SharePoint together. So as Jason indicated, I am a CRM guy, so I guess one of the big things that you may ask is, why is a CRM guy talking to me about SharePoint? So I think the reality is of working in CRM and SharePoint for the last 10 years is these two worlds have really collided. SharePoint does a beautiful job of collaborating and managing documents and surfacing data to the web or an extranet intranet, whereas CRM really does a great job of handling data and structuring it in a great way. When I'm approaching customers and working with clients these days, it's pretty much not a conversation about one or the other. It's a solution and working with these two products together. So today I'm going to dig into some of the key things that I've seen over the last few years, what people are asking for. For the consultants and the IT folks on the call, you may find this a little bit dry. It's really for decision makers, maybe folks that are using one or the other product and are thinking about integrating it or just considering what the possibilities are. I will not be going deep technical or anything along those lines. So hopefully you'll still find it enjoyable, but just to give you the heads up. Okay, so just to give you a little bit more about myself. So I've been working with Dynamics CRM since version 3, done about 50, 60 different implementations across Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and now I'm in charge of the CRM team here in Vancouver at Catapult. So lots of experience around this stuff, and yeah, we'll dig right into it. So some of the key takeaways from the session I'm hoping you'll get is basically understand some of the benefits of coupling these two products together. In isolation, they work well. Together, coupled in a structured way, they work very well together. There's benefits from return of investment, productivity, collaboration, a whole bunch of things that come together by making a solution out of these two products as opposed to going to them alone. I hope you'll be able to identify the key integration points. I'm going to touch on sort of 2 or 3 key ones. There's probably more different ways, and people are very creative and they've got different ways of working with these two products, but I'm going to highlight some of the key ones and I'll take you into those shortly. Hopefully you'll share in some success stories. I'm going to take you through a case study of a really great client we have here in Vancouver who are really advocates for doing this stuff. They're a brilliant SharePoint customer. They've got a really great CRM 2013 on-premise installation, and they've been working really hard to get this to the level they need it to work. And I'm going to show you a couple of scenarios and how they're using it. Another point here, plan to leverage your existing investment. You're probably going to hear me say that a few times through this presentation, but if you're already on the Microsoft stack, you already have an EA agreement or an Office 365 plan, you're probably already some of the way down this path. And the reality is that CRM and SharePoint are just pillars in the whole stack that Microsoft offers. So if you're already going down that path, maybe it makes sense to add on an additional service, integrate that service, think a little bit outside the box about what else is available to you. And lastly, I also want you to think about what your customers are thinking, what they're experiencing, and perhaps what you can do next to help them. Pretty much 10 times out of 10 now, when I go into a CRM type conversation, once we get beyond the requirements, it usually leads to, well, I need a portal. I need to surface information to my customers on the web through some sort of partner customer experience, maybe for e-commerce. It's pretty much a given that some sort of portal experience is needed. So your customers are demanding and looking for that type of experience these days. So just a little bit of reality of these some of these customers, and again, this is my interpretation just over the last few years focusing in this space. People need an external-facing portal. The big thing is, social media, sort of the rise of tablets and mobile devices. People are on the run, they're on the move, they want to be able to interact with you in their own means. They don't necessarily want to pick up the phone and wait on a customer call center queue and be able to talk to you. They would rather be able to do some self-service capabilities through a portal, manage their data, get in, get out quick. You need to be able to meet the demands of your customers. So if you're not satisfying their needs, they're probably already looking at the competitor. And remember as well, when they're walking in the door to do business with you, they're probably already 75% or plus qualified that they're going to do business with you because there's so much information available out there. So having to think about the reality of customers today and how they're interacting and working with you, some sort of structured portal component with a really solid CRM is kind of a backbone to that. Again, the need to cross platforms and offer a rich experience. As I was kind of saying there, mobile devices, bring your own device, everybody's mobile, and working across many, many different platforms, which from a technical standpoint can create huge challenges, but it's really the reality of our world, the way we're in now. We can't just stick to one particular platform. We have to be able to cross different boundaries in order to reach customers and make sure they're coming to you and not the competitor. Excuse me. And so the last couple of points there, we need to be responsive and proactive to changing customer needs. People are coining the different phrases as B2B and B2C and customer to customer. They're interacting through social media and probably talking about you and your organization and perhaps doing business with you or not doing business. Really getting on top of what you have to do in a responsive way to be able to, have a really tight customer service experience, follow up to any problems they may have, and give them all the abilities that they need, to be able to do business with you. And also proactively keeping up with what's changing. If anybody who's kind of been working with the Microsoft stack over the last few years, you know that the goalposts are continually changing, right? So, the rise of Office 365 and all the challenges of that CRM Online and Office 365 Online world brings is challenging. So you have to be able to keep up with that and realize that at the end of the day, it's all about the customer and doing business. So, and lastly, the need to see return of investment. So your key decision makers, your stakeholders, the guy that's really kind of approving these services and things that you're putting in, needs to be able to know that, hey, we're going to see some efficiencies. We're going to see some return of money. We're going to see an increase in customers or some analytics. So you kind of have to be able to measure what, really what the benefit's going to be to an organization going down this path, but realizing that more customers is more business, and, there's going to have to be some sort of measurable return of investment on whatever you undertake here. So this is my kind of view of the world a little bit relating to these two particular products. So Dynamics CRM, SharePoint, SQL, just looking in the middle of my slide here, one platform. So many commonalities between them that they play very well together because they share, the workflow engine, the SQL database engine, reporting services, they integrate so well. So one platform can address a lot of these concerns, amongst other things that come on, like in the lines of marketing and sales and other technologies. But Dynamics CRM and SharePoint together, it's pretty much a great couple. And the pillars that I see that kind of make this up is collaboration, productivity, and accessibility. So collaborations being, hey, if I'm going to have a customer's quote or a contract or some sales literature, the fact that I can get a high-performing team internally collaborating on those documents, being responsive and turning around, quote details and being service details and getting back to a customer very quickly in a collaborative way. SharePoint and CRM together provide some of that. Also, from a searchability, being able to quickly find data, get that information that you need and quickly turn it around to a sales team, to a customer, however you want to use it. So from a collaboration standpoint, a very important pillar to this. From a productivity standpoint, I mentioned that the workflow engine is the one and the same engine across both systems, being able to get those two talking to one another or creating automation, creating process automation that can make things more automated and easier to use within a system and make workers more highly productive. That's going to give you time savings and efficiencies. So maybe that the receptionist is not plugging in a whole bunch of paperwork into the system at the, when it can be scanned and sent in and stored as a document in SharePoint. So different way of thinking things around that, around productivity. It has to be usable. You want to have a system that's people want to use. It's accessible, in different means, on tablets, iPads, phones, different ways of using the system. That's important as well. So people will actually start putting leads and opportunities and things into the system. So it has to be productive. If it sucks and people don't want to use it, they're not, and that's going to hurt on the adoption side. From a data standpoint, CRM does a brilliant job of creating structured data, taking things that are very unstructured and putting in, entities and tables and columns and structure, and then being able to kind of overlay that with business process and structure to be able to, work with data that's not full of duplicates, is not dispersed and sitting on someone's desktop. So there's some productivity gains around those points. And accessibility, single sign-on, the fact that you can go across both of these products in a single sign-on session without getting prompted and logins and getting drop connections, that's an important aspect as well of that one platform, one location. Being able to go into CRM, into your single pane of glass, have a full view of your customer, but then not have to navigate to another system to be able to view all of their documentation. That's pretty powerful as well. And secure, having a platform that's secure from the bottom up, from field level security roles, forms, and then ultimately from a reporting platform right out to a portal experience being a secure experience and secure for an organization, extremely important as well. So I think kind of a combination of internally and externally of all of those factors combined with the platform and these guys combined is going to go some of the way to meeting customer needs. Obviously, there's other things as well around governance and standards and process, but from a technology standpoint, integrating these two and sort of looking at these pillars is going to help. So why should I go down this path? So some of the folks on the phone, you may already be looking at this, or you may be considering it. So obviously, I'm going to say again, leveraging that existing investment in Microsoft technology. It makes sense to be able to kind of build upon what you already have and build upon your existing agreement rather than completely changing gears and going in a different direction. There's an existing investment you can leverage. Realize some of the efficiencies collaborating internally. If you can establish a high-performing team and you have some real advocates for the system internally who share that message with others, maybe there's senior sales folks or there's juniors who are really technically savvy, kind of aligning those guys and getting them all collaborating, working internally on a system they want to use, that's pretty powerful. And then externally realize what your customer's going to see as a result. How fast are you turning around requests? How quickly are they getting their quotes? How quickly are you responding to their needs? So having to think about the reverse result of that and how customers are seeing you, what the lens is on you as an organization from a customer perspective. And then the other kind of notion there is, can customers do some of the work? As I said, you probably don't want to sit on the phone, wait in line. If you can go on and quickly update your profile, log a case, get a support ticket in hand, do what you need to do without actually having to pick up the phone, make the customer do some of the work. That's going to cut down a little bit of overhead as well. So there is something to be said around a portal experience, cutting down on overhead overall internally. Save some time, kind of in the same vein. Maybe there's going to be some time savings by doing this. And then consolidation and improving data accuracy, I think, goes in hand by, hey, using CRM for what it's good for, getting that data in a structured manner that's your system of record, and then using SharePoint for what it's good for, document storage, metadata, tagging, portal experience, and serving up those components. Isolate each of the key functions that go into each of those systems, but together they provide a really great customer solution. And the last point there from my little guy at the bottom is that some of this is actually kind of easy. From the most basic level, if you're a customer who just wants to, I'm saying a very small customer, maybe not enterprise, who wants to try some of this SharePoint integration out from, say, a document library standpoint, it's pretty easy to get started. And I'll go into the details a little bit more about that shortly because it's not for everybody. Some of it's easy, some of it's not so easy. So today's topic's just getting into this. So I'm going to talk about the out-of-the-box CRM document management integration. Really rich, great integration inside CRM. Works great for a lot of customers. There's wider considerations if you have a larger portal, extranet, internet play going on in your company. But from the most basic standpoint, CRM document management is something that was very, very technical in a previous life in my career anyway, that is now quite simple from an administration standpoint. I'm going to talk about some of the self-service components with CRM. So over the years, I've been asked for lots of different types of things that could go onto a portal experience for customers. I'm going to share some of those and kind of highlight how that could work and why, CRM as your content management system is a great way of thinking about this. And the last thing is I'm going to talk about Legal Services Society. I was saying really great customer here in Vancouver. I'm going to show you their system. I'm going to take you through a law case and how their lawyers interact with this particular system. So CRM document management. So the overview, so the native out-of-the-box integration works for the system and custom entities. So if there's any non-CRM people on the phone, really what that means is that whatever object you have in CRM, it works with. So your accounts, your opportunities, your leads, whatever kind of structure or terminology that you use in your system, a document library can be associated with those records. So every record can have a library exclusively for that particular record. It provides a more structured and extensible document management solution for CRM. So the trap that I used to fall into, I know my clients used to fall into before that this was easy, was, hey, you'd use the paperclip in CRM, you would upload a document and it would get stored as an annotation or a note in your CRM system. Hey, that's great and easy. The problem being, one, it's kind of hard to search. Two, it really stores it in a bad way that bloats your database. And three, you're piling on all of these attachments in your database. So when it comes to upgrade time and when it comes to migrating, CRM and doing things like that, you start accumulating problems. So the reason being here, my next point is detaching that document storage from CRM, not using annotations in a day-to-day fashion, and actually using the SharePoint integration into CRM. Gives you a whole lot better features, but also stores your data in a much better way. And for CRM Online customers, considering that you're paying by the gigabyte, you're going to start saving money if you can, put the right product in the right bucket and get your licensing in order. There could be some cost savings. So a point here is that with CRM, it is a folder-based structure. The jury's kind of still out. A lot of people hate that fact. Some people like it, that it is a folder structure. So it is fixed based on, hey, I have a location in SharePoint at this folder. And how that URL is made up can be of a CRM entity name. It can have an account name. There's a little bit of flexibility in what that structure is to point to that folder location. But ultimately, it is a folder location. It's not a dynamic store. So there is some implications of that. And I'll get into that in a second. So setting this up, really straightforward in CRM. At point number one here, I am a system administrator. I go into my document settings and I enable server-side integration. So that's for CRM online customers. On-premise customers, you have to use the list component, install that into your on-premise SharePoint. So a slightly different experience, but I think the way Microsoft's going, this is going to be the consistent experience fairly soon. Once you've enabled that server-side integration, set up the document management libraries. So you can see here, accounts, contacts, choosing the libraries that you want to create. And lastly, when you go and see a contact, so for example here, Kevin, it's automatically going to ask you, do you want to provision a library? You'll go yes, and then all of a sudden it's going to start carving out this particular library view for you. And I'll show you that in a second. So what that's going to give you above and beyond using a CRM attachment, you're going to have a storage in SharePoint, you're going to have check-in, check-out capabilities, versioning controllers available if you enable it in SharePoint for the library. You can set up review and approval workflows, and you can have document sharing. So all of a sudden you have this much richer experience than you had natively using the CRM out-of-the-box attachment functionality. Sorry, let's change slides here. Here we go. So how does it work? This is kind of a pie-in-the-sky view of a record. So my account is Catapult. So I can create new documents. And what that'll do is when I click New, it'll give me an option to create a Word, an Excel, a PowerPoint, all of the sort of native Office applications. If you're a CRM Online, Office 365 CRM Online user, it'll automatically open up Excel Online, Word Online, but there is an option in SharePoint to point that to a local instance, so you can open your local instances of Word and Excel, etc. You can upload documents. Behind the scenes there, if you don't want someone to upload a certain file type, you can set up an exclusion list in SharePoint. And that will stop someone uploading, say, an application or some sort of file that you don't want to see inside your CRM or SharePoint. You can associate many locations. I really like this feature, but because, hey, out of the box you get your default folder-based location for your account documents. But for example, maybe you've got a completely different SharePoint instance where you just have quotes, you just have contracts, you just have literature that could be applicable to this particular customer. You can add another location. So therefore, you can toggle between the different locations to see different views of documents that relate to Catapult. That's kind of neat. I don't think a lot of people are using that yet, but I can see some really good merit with it. View documents in SharePoint. Customers I've talked to kind of have a love-hate relationship with that button. Perhaps you don't ever want to know that SharePoint exists in the background. You just want to work with CRM in this single pane of glass. You don't want to leave CRM. Opening in SharePoint, you're kind of exposed to quite a different view of your data, that folder structure. Maybe you've got GUIDs in the name. It can be a very different experience. So I believe there is options for turning that off. But to me, that button is a little contentious at this point. Configurable location name. I was talking about how you can have the account name, contact name, parent account name in that location. This is just kind of a really basic example of what the location folder structure could look like. And again, several different document types, depending on what your inclusion, exclusion lists are. So some of the challenges and limitations with this, using your out-of-the-box integration limits your ability to tailor the structure and hierarchy. We talked about that a little bit. The fact is that it is a pretty linear folder structure. There is no way to kind of get around that. By default, it doesn't leverage all of the SharePoint capabilities such as versioning, metadata, and collaboration tools. Those functions are there. You just have to have someone who can go into SharePoint and enable those functions behind the scenes. And it's not always obvious where to do that. It was a little bit of trial and error for me last year when I was kind of going through some of this, that versioning has to be enabled per library in order for it to actually come on board. And customers quite often want to have a certain amount of versions of a document stored in their CRM or SharePoint Online. Obviously, you don't want to completely blow out your Office Online subscription and use up too much space by storing large documents in many, many versions of them. So a few things to think about behind the scenes, but at its most simplest form, it really is a wizard-driven integration to turn on and get started. From a security model, this is an interesting point. The library access is derived from your CRM role-based security. So what that means in the most simplest form is I can see Catapult as my customer. I go in, I see a full list of documents. There is no easy way through CRM to be able to say, hey, well, Bob in finance can see all of the finance documents. Kelly in sales, she can see only the sales documents. The actual document-based security to restrict what a person sees on a particular record in CRM, that doesn't exist. So it's pretty much if you have permission to see the documents, you will see the documents. That's it. So a couple of considerations there. I'm not sure they're challenges or limitations. It's more just calling out, hey, this is the reality of it is now. But going back to that, hey, Microsoft are continually evolving and improving this as they go along. Anything's possible in the near future. This really remains to be seen. My last kind of point there is if in doubt about the right fit for you, you work with an information architecture consultant. A lot of companies, especially the enterprise size who are undertaking this stuff, it's not easy from an enterprise scale deployment. Doing SharePoint alone, let alone CRM or the other way around, is difficult enough. Working with someone who can really understand, hey, what does the bigger picture look like? What is my experience, with a CRM document coming in from an extranet, an intranet? How does that all work together? That's a bigger picture play, and that's a different consideration beyond this. So, I'd encourage you to work with some sort of information architecture consultant who can guide you along those lines. So, I'm just going to share my desktop for a second. I'm just going to take you for a very quick spin through just an example of what this looks like. So this is, again, the same in my slides here, my example of my Catapult record. And you can see I've come in through my breadcrumb trail. I've gone into my accounts. I've opened up my Catapult record. And then on one of the tiles I have available to me is to see associated documents. So I get this view, and for all intents and purposes, I'm looking at SharePoint right now. Except I'm in a browser, I'm not in SharePoint, I'm in CRM. So you can see the list of my documents. I can see here that I have a document checked out. My colleague Andrew has a couple of documents checked out. And I can kind of dig into some of the properties of what's going on with that and when he had it checked out. I can also check in my own documents. Actually, let's refresh that. It's frozen up on me. Yep, there we go. Okay, I just want to upload a document here. Just want to give you a sense of how kind of tightly integrated this is. So I'm going to upload this little registration document. And there we go. So I can see my registration's now come in, it's been uploaded. Simple as that, really straightforward stuff. Again, single pane of glass, not having to leave CRM to undertake some of this stuff. So just wanted to kind of hit on that point. So just go back to, stop sharing. Okay, so just go back to my slides here. So I'm going to jump on to the next topic. And I'm going to talk about self-service components in CRM and SharePoint. So basically, any object in CRM can be exposed to a SharePoint portal. What that means is that we talked about accounts and contacts, opportunities. And CRM is such a nimble product. It can be tailored to any industry, any particular vertical to come up with what that look and feel of that system is. So you could be a sales-orientated organization, an events-orientated, like I've worked in finance, tourism, hydro, all sorts of different things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that anything can really be exposed to a portal component simply because CRM has that level of API. It's very robust in order to expose out information. And it may be from an editable standpoint. It may be just from a read only. It could be for some sort of executive who needs to see an aggregation of reports. Many different levels and different ways that you can expose data out, and CRM is extremely nimble to be able to do that. So the technology behind the scenes, and I'm sure there's more, but these are the kind of the key ones that I've come across, is the BCS, Business Connectivity Services. There's some great examples out there of being able to create a data source and connect to CRM, pull out CRM data, and quickly get that up onto a SharePoint portal. So that's a good one to look into. And I'm going to, in this slide deck, there is a couple of examples of where you can go to find that information. Web parts, probably the most common one, building up a little widget or an application of some sort and embedding that in your SharePoint portal or your SharePoint site to be able to expose CRM data. And this works great between CRM Online and CRM On-Premise as well. There's really no major restrictions going across those two platforms. InfoPath, I think, is a little bit more legacy these days. With the LSS example I'm going to show you, a lot of that is InfoPath. I think today you would start more look at web parts. When they did their implementation, it was a little while ago, and InfoPath was kind of the way they went. And then lastly, SQL Server Reporting Services, reports and dashboards, building out these little aggregate widgets and dashboard functions that can kind of bubble up that CRM data and kind of produce an aggregation of what that data could be and show it through SharePoint. So several technologies that can help assist with this. So one example, I'm going to take you through three today, is some really good examples of what you could surface to SharePoint, what makes sense. So one is events. I've been asked for this a few times. So the example being is that, hey, I'm a sales organization. I host a biannual golfing tournament. I love to get out new customers. I love to get out prospects, mingle, play golf. And hey, in CRM, we want to start nurturing those guys and potentially turn them into new customers or get more business. That's kind of the scenario here. So CRM does a really great job of sort of managing events. And just for full disclosure, some of these screens I'm showing you here, they're just conceptual, and I've actually used some components from ADX Studio just to kind of conceptualize what can be done. They also have a really great product that offers a portal experience. The SharePoint can also do the same thing. So just to let you know that. But from its form here, you can see that we have an events landing page, the fall golfing tournament. We have some details around when this event is going to be on. It's kind of a rich text experience. We have some images. We also have a sort of a calendar list view of all of the golfing tournaments coming up, and then an ability to download an ICS file and add this to your calendar. So kind of that kind of experience for a customer, being able to log in, opt into a particular event, that's something that gets commonly asked for. If I go to the next slide here, on the reverse side of that, why would we store that in CRM? Well, the fact is that we actually can build out a pretty significant event management module. What that can do is the ability to track attendee, track the people who are declining, track the people who are attending, capture those comments. And really what that does is it rolls up to a campaign. In all essence, this is a campaign to try and get people to do business with you, come and play golf with you and whatnot. So managing that as a campaign kind of becomes a marketing function. So behind that is really, okay, well, we need to book the golf course. We need to do the catering. We need to make sure we've got vehicles for everybody. There's a whole bunch of planning activities, internal resources, and then ultimately you want to be able to work with those responses and start nurturing them to make sure they're going to turn up and have a good experience. So it very closely aligns to a campaign, which is something that CRM does a great job of. And the other thing here too is that we're managing all of this content centrally in CRM, rendering it in SharePoint. So CRM by nature now becomes a content management system for this in a structured way, while also giving you the ability to run a bunch of analytics and analysis on this information you're capturing and turn those people into new customers or repeat business. So great scenario of how CRM can be quite powerful in this respect. And just on the right-hand side here, you can see this is just examples of information you can capture. I've said a couple of times that CRM is so nimble. These can be whatever you need them to be. Accounts could be your sponsors, your companies, could be vendors, anything like that. Contacts, we could have speakers. You can have event permissions. I'm actually going to show you in the legal services example of how we actually control access to the SharePoint portal through CRM. Now that's an extremely powerful statement right there, because we've made something that is typically very, very technical, Active Directory and SharePoint security groups, all of that kind of stuff, and it's now become a 2 or 3 click thing inside CRM. So quite smart, and I'll show you that in action. Other options here: event schedules, event products, lots of different things that you could store against this inside CRM. Makes a lot of sense. From another example here, customer profile. This one's a little bit simpler here, but you can see our contact, John Simpson. He can log in for a secured site and then start managing his own data. That's the scenario here. So he's gone into his contact form. He can start putting in his name, his first name, whatever field that you need it to be. Again, this is a perfect example of how a web part could come together just to capture that information through SharePoint, some sort of extranet portal, and push it through to CRM where you're managing it in a structured way. One thing that's kind of really interesting on is marketing preferences. This is another huge one, and anybody who's kind of heard about the castle legislation recently knows that this stuff is very important. You can't go blasting people with emails and communications if they're not, opting in and to receive that kind of information from you. So I'll show you on the flip side that CRM does an amazing job of capturing and adhering to those preferences and making sure that contacts aren't getting the information they're not subscribed to. From a submit information here, this update button, you could run it through an approval process. Another great example where CRM shines is having a workflow that can capture key aspects of what's been submitted. Maybe we want to check that they're not trying to hack or put some different information into your CRM that shouldn't be there. So an approval process, approval business process flow, something like that is also possible. CRM does a great job of that. So on the flip side, from a CRM experience, and I'm sure some of you have probably seen this, CRM does a great job of capturing all of that core Tombstone information. It has that great little Maps integration with Bing. But you have the ability here to sort of manage those marketing preferences, as I mentioned. So adding this person to a marketing list, for an example, if John Simpson was on my company newsletter and he opted out through his public profile that he updated on the portal, he would dynamically be removed from marketing list to stop receiving those communications. So you've now got this very tight integration going into your marketing module. Your marketing team now has some control over this stuff as well. So again, CRM does a very good job of that. That's what it's designed for. From an activity management workflow here, just as an aside, maybe there's other conversations going on with John. You can see here Andrew's emailed him out a sample product. We've had a couple of phone calls with him about whether he's coming to the golf event, whether he's interested in other products. Capturing a digest of all of those activities, those phone calls, those emails, all of those Outlook type experience things is also captured against the profile in CRM. Now, that's not something that John sees or knows about through the SharePoint portal. This is internally digested and captured inside CRM. So you, as an organization, have a better picture of what's going on with this guy. How much business can we really do with him? Where is he in the qualification process to do some repeat business with us? So it's pretty powerful stuff. The third and final one I'm going to show you here is from a customer service standpoint, kind of the key theme of this session. So being able to, log a complaint, log a question, ask about a problem, something along those lines. So this kind of notion of a help desk, a support desk. So a couple of key things is that Microsoft recently purchased Paracha. They also have a really great integration from a knowledge base standpoint. So that's another example of a portal outside of SharePoint, but there's no reason why you can't surface the KB knowledge base that exists inside CRM today through to your portal here. So what that means is that my company is publishing a series of help sheets, cheat sheets, help things that have keywords that someone can search and try and diagnose their own problem. So for this example here, I typed in fault. And if there was something in there around fixing a fault with my particular appliance that I'm writing to ask a question about, I would get a little cheat sheet that would pop up. Now, the benefit of that is, and you may have seen this on other websites, is, hey, maybe I can fix this problem myself. I don't have to log a case. That automatically means less work on my side. The customer's happy. He's already solved his problem. He moves on. And that's less backlog for your customer service team. So knowledge base is a really, really great little thing as well. Getting a lot of interest around that as Microsoft continue to evolve and improve that inside CRM. On a more simple note here, opening a support request, we can kind of expose any fields you like, customer case details, kind of categorizing. Maybe you want to route this particular case because it's a technical problem to someone in a technical team as opposed to a sales team. So kind of thinking about those scenarios. Upload a document, and you guessed it, that's going to go into your document library associated to your customer or your case. So again, we're leveraging another function of SharePoint behind the scenes here to capture those correspondence, those documents that are going back and forwards with John Simpson, our customer. On another sense here, resolving, cancelling a case, those again are CRM functions as well, and I'm going to show you the flip side in a second here that, hey, if you want to resolve a case, the customer can do that, the call center rep can do that for them, they can cancel it, or maybe they just want to add a note to say, hey, there's another problem that started, or hey, I resolved it. So lots of different ideas and functions that make a lot of sense to an external portal, and from a CRM side, you can see here, this is how it's managing that process. So this case form, this support form, escalation options, creating a child case, resolving it, applying a routing rule. So if it is a fault, it goes to someone in technical, adding it to a queue. So maybe you've got a round robin there. The first call center rep picks it up and takes it on and deals with it straight away. So different options around escalation, service management, managing these kind of problems. Maybe you want to break it into a kind of an SLA where your top tier customers, the guys that are spending a lot of money with you, get picked first. That's possible as well. From a process flow standpoint, I'll just touch on this really quick, is that we can now manage what's going on in the process. So you can see here I have an identify stage with a little blue flag. So this case has just come in, it's open, we've identified what the case is, we've found the customer, I can now move on to the next stage, which is research. Now why this is so great is that while I'm in, say, the research stage, my manager, my boss, or an executive from the company can start having a top-down view of what's going on. How many cases are stuck in the research phase, and why are they stuck there? Why aren't we moving through those quicker? So it starts to bubble up information around where we are as a customer service organization and find out, are we bottlenecking? Are we fast? How are we doing? Who's the best reps to sort this information out? Many possibilities around this stuff, but it's a visual cue to say where we are in this process of resolving this particular issue. Down the bottom here, core case information, we have an ID, we can kind of pick up the origin, have a bit of a description, and again, here's that familiar thing I just talked about, that activity wall, capturing all that correspondence going on. So from a customer service standpoint, you have this very rich other experience going on inside CRM to make sure you are responsive and following up and getting things done internally, collaborating, being productive, in order to realize that the customer on the other side is going to say, hey, my case is resolved, I don't have a problem anymore, I am willing to do business with you again, that kind of thing. So just to kind of wrap this topic up, watching the clock here a little, other key CRM and SharePoint crossover points, and again, there's many more. You can get a little creative with this stuff. Announcements, maybe you have a company-wide announcement you need to push out to everybody. CRM does a great job of that. Blogs and forums, it has the ability to hook into social media, your Twitter feeds, things like that. Just bubble that stuff up into a web part. Totally possible. From a retail product catalog e-commerce type experience, there's no reason why you can't connect to a payment gateway and use CRM as a backend for serving up your inventory, serving up your kind of retail experience with your shopping cart. That's a little bit more complex, but it's entirely possible, and CRM has the backbones to be able to support that. Those activities I showed you, really great. Maybe there's certain notes and attachments, things like that, that you want to bubble back to the client through the portal. That's possible as well. And lastly, their reporting, which I didn't show you. There's many abilities there. If you have a sort of a report developer who can carve up some certain maybe pie charts, bar charts, graphs, lists of information, whatever makes sense to show to a customer. In a secure fashion. You don't want to give them everything, you just want to show them what's important to them. So certainly from a reporting standpoint, having SSRS across the platform makes that entirely possible as well. So just to try this out yourself, there is a great blog up on MSDN. Maybe I'll post that in the question and answers at the end here just so people can find it. That gives you a really quick example of how to set up the BCS connector and actually start bubbling up accounts and contacts to SharePoint. I tried it out. It took me about an hour and a half to get that working. It's kind of ugly. You wouldn't want to use it in production, but it's a great way to demonstrate, hey, I can pull data from a CRM Online environment, on-prem environment, and bubble it up to SharePoint. And the other option is the CRM SDK. If you haven't looked at that already, there's a really great example of a web application that you can deploy and use with BCS, use as a web part, and just to kind of get you started on that. Again, not super elegant or production ready, but enough to start having a conversation, start looking into this stuff. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my desktop again, and I'm just going to take you through Law Services Society. Through my laptop. So hopefully everybody can see that. So just to give you a little bit of background, so the Law Services Society, Legal Services Society, British Columbia, they have CRM 2013 on-premise, and they use it to manage complex criminal cases. So cases come in, and think of it as a project. A lot of people have been on projects. You have a project that has tasks, you have resources that build time, they have expenses. It's that kind of process. We're managing lawyers who are working on criminal cases in order to track budgets, billings, and ultimately provide long-range forecasting to availability and costs. Ultimately, it manages the interactions with the private bar lawyers. They do not have access to CRM. There's no reason for them to go into CRM. Their interaction with legal services is all through the portal. So what SharePoint provides is a really great internal document store, so they can manage their documents internally for these lawyers, including invoices. And from a lawyer standpoint, it provides quite a rich experience for the lawyers to go in and interact with legal services. And CRM, as I mentioned earlier, manages access and security in both environments. So I'm going to show you some videos, and I'm going to commentate these videos as I go through. Apologize if it's a little small on your screen, but hopefully I can kind of commentate what's going on. So this is the homepage for the Legal Services Society portal. My case at the moment is for the Corleone family, great mobster family, lots of crime going on. And from a lawyer standpoint, my name is Lawyer One, LCM Lawyer One. If I play the video here, I'm logged in, and I'm going to go view my Corleone family client list. And you can see here I've popped up a main screen. I have all of my tasks related to this particular case. I have all of the disbursements related, and I'm also going to have an invoice section. So you can see here I'm building up a picture of the work that I'm doing on this particular case as a lawyer and being able to log and work at my time. Now this is all SharePoint 2010 on-premise, leveraging InfoPath, which you'll see in a second. So the next thing that's going to happen here is I'm going to open up a work plan note, going to add a note to the case, and this is actually going to flow through to CRM and be stored as an annotation against the, sorry, not an annotation, a note against the work plan itself. And you'll see that in a second as we go through. Okay, It's changing screens here. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm going down, and I'm actually going to create a new task. And I'll pause on a couple of things here that are happening. So we're creating a new bail task. Going to put in a description of what I am working on. Choosing the proposed resource, which is myself as lawyer 1. The estimated hours is 1. The start date that I'm going to work on this particular task, and the end date, and then put in some notes. So I'm doing my project planning basically. And these tasks will go in through to LSS, where they'll be able to collaborate internally and say, hey, I approve the amount of time for this particular case, given it has a certain amount of budget. Continuing on with the task, you can see here the next thing I can do is I can upload an attachment. And consistent theme with this presentation, hey, that document's going to go through and be attached to the work plan. I think these ones go through as annotations, but there's plans to make that as part of a document library piece. So the next thing here is you can see that I have a new task in my list. It's a pending task, and that's now gone through to LSS for approval. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my invoice. So I've done a bunch of work in the previous period. You can see here, if I just pause for a second, already knows that the client is Michael Corleone. So we've got some information propagating through from CRM automatically. It already knows I'm lawyer 1, so I'm not submitting invoices on anybody else, even though multiple people can work on a particular case. Putting a date in, going to put my file number in. I have a unique ID as a lawyer. And then what's really great here is I've got all of these pre-baked tasks that are already approved for me. So LSS has approved the task. They've said you have 15 hours for your general preparation for this particular task relating to preparation on the Michael Corleone case. I'm going to choose a legal research. I'm going to put in my hours that I booked. So I'm only using 1 hour out of my available 15. And I'm going to put in a bit of a description of what we're going to work on, researching the case. Now, what you're seeing here is an InfoPar form. That's been a few years they've worked over it and enhanced it, but very tightly integrated with CRM to produce all of the content that you're seeing. Now, for a disbursement, you saw there that we had choose accommodation disbursement. All of the instructions, the approved amount, the approved rates, everything's come through automatically from CRM. So me as a lawyer, I can say, well, I'm only allocated, $2,700 there for my accommodation. And obviously, if I book more than that, that's going to trigger off some sort of other process in CRM to say, hey, there's an issue here. Thankfully, it was only $100, so I still have quite a balance remaining, and that's because I stayed at the Holiday Inn. Awesome. Got an attachment there, and what's going to happen now, if I just pause, you saw that I clicked on the Submit button, nothing happened. We've now got an approval process going on here saying, hey, when you click Submit, you certify that when you're submitting this disbursement, this is a one-shot deal. Is it correct? So we've got actually some validation going on from the SharePoint side. Perhaps that's tied to this lawyer's terms and conditions inside the system to say, hey, make sure you're approving your expenses before you put them in, because this is a one-time deal, something along those lines. So just an example of some validation going on. Okay, so I now have a pending invoice that's been submitted to LSS. Now, flipping over to the CRM side of the business here, you can see, if I just click play, we're on our work plan. I'm actually going to go through, and you'll see the pending invoices that have been created for Michael Corleone. These are propagated through that InfoPar form into CRM, and we now have a full 360-degree view of all of the invoices, disbursements that are going on for this particular work plan on the Michael Corleone case. Now, looking at the screen here, you can see that we have all the invoice information, the amount claimed, everything basically that needs to happen for the folks at LSS to be able to go through and start approving this process, approving that invoice. Sorry, let's go to the next slide here. So the next thing is I can go into that proceeding again, and we're actually open up the master work plan where it all started. So what this is going to do, is we've got our activities and notes. You can see we've got some attachments there. We're now starting to get an aggregation of budget and forecast information. So really great for the senior staff at LSS to be able to say, hey, how are we actually tracking on this overall Michael Corleone case against all the work plans, the different lawyers working on it, against our time booked, expenses booked against the overall budget. So we're getting some aggregation of data that's happening behind the scenes. Just touching on activities very quickly, you can see here, kind of showing you a few times, we can now start internally collaborating. Hey, can we start updating the budget values internally? On this case, we can enter a description and assign it out to internal staff to collaborate. These tasks are not visible to lawyers per that note there, so this is only internal collaboration. But that's not to say in the future in your implementation that you couldn't start exposing certain values, certain fields to externally. Now, from a work plan task standpoint, we can see here we can dig into that general preparation task. We can see that the hours requested was 15. And you know what? We can actually put a note back out to the lawyer, you know, and we can say, hey, you know, this is only to be billed, you know, in increments of 15, 1 hour increments. No problem at all. That note will be surfaced out to lawyers. So we've got a kind of a two-way street there, how we're working of what goes out the door. Great for internal staff to work with. This is a nice central place to manage that information. And the last thing I'm going to show you is that security. If you watch this closely, you can see here we've got a little lawyer subgrid. I choose on here, and I added lawyer 2. What that's done is taken the lawyer 2 contact record and information and adding it to the SharePoint security group. So that's all been propagated through with plugins across to SharePoint, added them to the security group, and now that lawyer will get a notification to say, hey, you've been added to this particular case per our discussion. You can now log into the portal to be able to start working on it. So something that, again, pretty technical, and certainly from an implementation standpoint, that was a challenging piece. That took a bit of time to do, but from an end user standpoint, very, very straightforward, easy to manage from inside CRM. So I'm just going to flip back to the slides that you guys are seeing. Just bear with me for 1 second. Okay, so I'm just going to do a final recap. We're just about at the end here. So there are many synergies between the Microsoft CRM and SharePoint. Hopefully you've seen that. I've touched on a few key things that really resonate for me that my clients over the last few years have been asking for. You know, thinking about that document management piece is pretty much a given on every implementation now. You know, those examples of logging in through the portal and working with events and customer profiles and service management, things like that. Great examples of what people are asking for. And then you saw LSS, you know, really, really great example of someone putting this into action and making success of it. Lots of great synergies across the platform, across process, across interactions between those systems. Document management integration is out of the box. Hey, if you really want to just see how this looks, and some of you may have done this, spark up a 30-day free trial of CRM Online, and you will get this. You can turn on the SharePoint trial as well as a freebie add-in. Try integrate them together and give it a go. You know, you may have to invest a couple of hours to do that, but it really is a great example and very easy to get started for smaller organizations. And from the last point there, managing unstructured customer data in CRM coupled with SharePoint front-end helps improve the customer experience. I think we've demonstrated in many different ways how CRM really provides a great internal experience for internal users to be able to work with that data that is normally very unstructured. Right now, you may be in a position where it's sitting on someone's desktop in an Excel file or in an Access database. Taking that ununified information and kind of consolidating it and putting it in a structured format in something like CRM, and then layering on SharePoint to expose it internally, it's an amazing, great experience. It takes a bit of time to get there, but baby steps you can work through that. So that's everything I have. I'm totally open to answering questions, staying on the line here for a little bit for everybody. I'll just have a look at the chat window here.
All right, thanks, Matt. And yeah, to everyone in the audience, please do ask your questions, share your experiences with integrating CRM and SharePoint. You can use the Q&A block that you see to the right of the slides, and we do have a couple questions that have already come in, Matt.
We do, okay.
I can give you the first one here if you want.
Sure, yeah.
So Kyle asks, can CRM data be automatically mapped to SharePoint metadata? There are often commonalities between the data I'm tracking on CRM and the metadata I would want on a related document. It would be nice if it could be done without manually entering the metadata.
You know what, I'm not a super technical person, so I'm not sure I can answer that from a technical standpoint. My typical answer is pretty much anything can be done with this stuff. You know, certainly there is metadata tagging behind document libraries, so I'd imagine it can be done. Certainly something I can look into offline for you, if that will help. Yep.
Another question. Let's see here. Can we have our SharePoint and CRM connection set up so that all email attachments are automatically moved from CRM storage to SharePoint?
Can you do that? Yeah, yes, you can. Yeah, you could tie that to a workflow extension. I would say that'd be the easiest way to do it, and then you could basically call SharePoint, call the list service, and basically push them over to document management. I think you could do that. Yep.
All right, and Amelia asks, is there anything new in CRM 2013 compared to 2011 from the SharePoint perspective? Yeah.
So they changed the whole sort of the way you integrate. So that what I showed you was server-based integration. So now for online customers, you don't have to go and install that list component. It's now, instead of being kind of a kludgy iframe that was embedded in the form like 2011, it's now actually a kind of a seamless experience. It's now part of the system. You can also start manipulating it through subgrids as well. So from a functionality standpoint, it's largely the same, except for the fact it works across every browser. It's much more seamless and integrated into CRM. So it's a slightly improved experience, and I believe CRM 2015 is coming out in December. There's even more changes coming. So it's kind of a constant improvement process, I think. So.
All right. Another question here. A few more coming in, actually. Can document libraries incorporate content types?
Ooh, I believe you can do that through SharePoint directly. It's not a setting you can do through the CRM interface, but I believe you can apply that to a library, a specific library for an entity.
Okay, yeah, and he clarified, yeah, he meant SharePoint content types.
Yes, you can.
And you're saying at the library level you can do that, okay.
Yes, you can, yeah.
Someone asks what the CRM and SharePoint integration technology used behind the info path was in the Law Society demo.
The technology used? I believe it's all, he's talking for the integrations, obviously. I believe it's all custom .NET app. There's no ETL or anything at play there. It's all built through custom .NET app.
Okay, a question about rights and permissions. So Michael notes that it's extremely painful to manage rights and permissions in both systems. Yep. How can you set up a working permission handling approach between the two systems?
For onboarding new users. Yeah, you did right. It has been pretty painful. I guess typically when we go into implementations, we make sure that we've got security groups and everything set up from a SharePoint side and CRM, make sure users are in the read or the write contribution groups. I think your question is, how can you automate that? So our LSS, I think, did that. Again, I'm not super technical on the side. I believe it was all custom code that took the name of the user and added them into predefined groups in SharePoint, so they would have all those automatic permissions. I can get you more information on that. So I'm probably not the right person to dig into the technical side. Yeah.
Great, and yeah, in terms of your contact information, Matt, we can share a link to your email when we follow up with the recording here. If you want, you could even actually put, share it in the chat there if you wanted. You could put your email address if people want to reach out to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A couple more questions here. Oh, so just as a follow-up on the law demo. Oh, great. And there's Matt. You can see Matthew at catapultrp.com. Was BCS involved in that integration technology?
No, not for them. No, it was very much just InfoPath forms and custom web. Yeah, they had an interesting situation because change management was a huge piece, and they're continually evolving as well. They've got other projects going on, so they were very much kind of stuck in the 2010 world, put it that way. So when we went to do CRM in 2013 online, on-premise, sorry, and then looking at SharePoint 2013, it was just too much of a cliff for them basically to make that jump straight away. So really we've got slightly older technology for them. But I guess the good thing is it's kind of tried and tested, right? It's very successful for them. So as far as I know, no BCS. Yeah.
What are the options to surface CRM data in SharePoint lists?
Options to do that. Well, I guess the only ones that I've kind of gone through myself is really just exposing entities. What I saw is you can have basically read, write, edit, just simple CRUD permissions, I believe, not delete, but just exposing lists of any CRM data you like in a list format inside CRM. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but basically through the API, you can call upon any entity that's searchable and expose that through SharePoint.
All right, great. And I would say, yeah, to Riku who asked that question, please feel free to follow up if you had any more specific thoughts there.
Yeah, and obviously I'm one guy. I've got a team of guys behind me, so if there is any really kind of curly questions like that, I can put it out to the wider group that help work on LSS and have some other experiences with this and try and find out for you. Yeah.
All right, great. We're a minute over the top of the hour. Matt, can you answer a few more questions that have come in?
I'm totally fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. And okay, well, let's dive into the next two here. So, can you speak to the typical costs of having a portal developed?
Yeah. So, I guess from our approach, obviously you need a pretty good upfront design phase. So typically, I guess it depends on the scale. Like what I showed you was some of the ADX portal components. That from the most simplest form to get a portal with events and help desk and that going, that can be 10 grand, 10,000, basically for a hosted site. That's not on SharePoint. So from a very simplest form, and that bakes into CRM very nicely. From a SharePoint side, you'd want some sort of upfront analysis requirements phase as well as implementation. So you're probably, from a services estimate to put that in, maybe it could be 60 to 100K easy, I would think. And then from a licensing standpoint, I believe this is where it kind of changes on me a lot. On-premise, there's sort of one-off on-premise server licensing costs. I don't have it off the top of my head what that would be. For an online, I believe it's kind of maybe $10 to $15 per user per month kind of costs from a licensing. I would say if you have a relationship with Microsoft right now, it really also depends on your agreement with Microsoft as well. If you have existing software from a licensing standpoint, if you talk to your license provider, your LAR, they'll be able to tell you what your rates are, because it differs between if you're a non-for-profit, you're a large organization, small organization. So, but yeah, from a services, it could range from 10 to hundreds of thousands from a licensing, 10 to $15 a month upwards.
All right. Well, some great questions there from the audience. I want to thank everyone for contributing and sharing your questions there. And you do have Matt's email address there. So, there were a couple questions about access to the slides, Matt. Do you have anything in mind in terms of if you'd like to share those and how?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just not sure how's the best way to distribute that. Maybe I can do that through you, Jason. But
yeah, we're happy to help with that.
Okay, well, we'll talk offline here. I'll make it available to all the participants that can take a look through. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll follow up with everyone. We had a great turnout for today's event, and we're really pleased to see that.
Yeah.
As you leave today, please do look for the survey that'll pop up. 30 seconds will help us get some feedback and help give Matt feedback on how today's session went and what we can do going forward. With that, I am going to conclude today's session. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. I appreciate you tuning in. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.